The alarm screamed through Kepler Station like a dying animal. Ryan Cole grabbed his coffee mug before it slid off the table and hit the floor. The station shook again, harder this time. The lights flickered. Someone was attacking them. Ryan ran toward the docking bay where his ship waited. He was 32 years old and had fought in more battles than he wanted to remember. His gray eyes were sharp and quick. A long scar ran down his left cheek from an old fight. People said he looked mean, but his crew knew better. They knew he would die before he let them down. The station corridor was full of people running and screaming. Ryan pushed through the crowd. His uniform was half-buttoned. He had been off duty, trying to relax for the first time in weeks. So much for that plan. He reached the docking bay and saw his ship, the Valiant. It was a small escort frigate, nothing fancy. The hull was covered in old battle scars and repair patches, but it was fast and tough, just like its crew. Ben Torres, his first officer, was already at the airlock waving him over. "Captain, the Rozak pirates are here. 20 ships at least. They're tearing through the station defenses like paper." Ben was young, only 25, but he was smart and loyal. His hands shook a little as he spoke. Ryan did not blame him. The Rozak were known for being cruel. They did not just rob their targets. They destroyed them. Ryan climbed aboard and headed straight for the bridge. The rest of his crew was already at their stations. Kate Morrison sat at the engineering console, her fingers flying over the controls. She was 40 years old with gray in her hair and grease under her fingernails. She knew the Valiant better than anyone alive. If the ship could do something, Kate could make it happen. "Status report," Ryan said as he dropped into the captain's chair. Kate did not look up from her screens. "Engines are good. Weapons are charged. We can undock in 30 seconds. But Captain, the Coalition fleet is 3 hours away. We're alone out here." Ryan looked at the main view screen. Kepler Station was dying. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like fireworks. The station's defenses fired back, but there were too many enemy ships. Civilian transports tried to escape, but the pirates shot them down one by one. Ben moved to stand beside Ryan's chair. "Sir, other Coalition ships are pulling back. They're retreating to regroup with the main fleet. They want us to do the same." Ryan watched another civilian ship explode. He thought about the people on board. Families, children. They had done nothing wrong. They were just trying to live their lives. And now they were dying because no one would help them. "How many civilians are still trapped on the station?" Ryan asked. Ben checked his console. 10,000, maybe more, including members of the Varesh royal family. They were here for some kind of diplomatic visit. The Varesh were important. They were one of the most powerful alien races in the Coalition. If their royal family died here, it would be bad for everyone. But Ryan was not thinking about politics. He was thinking about 10,000 people who needed help. "Undock the ship," Ryan said quietly. Kate looked at him. "Captain, if we go out there alone, we'll die." "Maybe," Ryan said. "But if we run, all those people will definitely die. I didn't join the Defense Corps to run away when things get hard." He looked around the bridge at his crew. 20 people total. They had been together for 3 years. They trusted each other with their lives. Ryan would not force them to follow him on a suicide mission. If anyone wants to leave, now's the time. Take an escape pod. No one will think less of you. No one moved. Kate smiled a little. "You're stuck with us, Captain. Now let's go save some people." The Valiant pulled away from the station and flew straight into the battle. Ryan's plan was simple. He could not win a direct fight against 20 pirate ships. But he did not need to win. He just needed to buy time for the civilians to escape. "Head for the asteroid field," Ryan ordered. "We're going to play hide-and-seek." The asteroid field near Kepler Station was dangerous. Huge rocks floated in space, some as big as buildings. Ships that flew through it risked being smashed to pieces. But Ryan had flown through worse. And the pirates would have to follow him if they wanted to catch him. The Valiant dove into the asteroid field with 3 pirate ships chasing it. Ryan flew between the rocks at full speed. His hands were steady on the controls. Behind him, one of the pirate ships hit an asteroid and exploded. The other 2 kept coming. "Fire at that big rock on our left," Ryan said. "Break it apart." The Valiant's weapons blazed. The asteroid shattered into thousands of smaller pieces. The debris cloud filled the space behind them. One pirate ship tried to fly through it and got torn apart. The last ship turned away, but there were still more pirates. Ryan led them on a chase through the asteroids, always moving, never stopping. Every few minutes he would spin the ship around and fire a few shots. then disappear behind another rock. The pirates got angrier and angrier. They started making mistakes. Ben watched the scanners. "Captain, the civilian transports are starting to escape. Your plan is working." Ryan allowed himself a small smile, but it did not last long. The Valiant shook hard. Alarms went off all over the bridge, Kate cursed. "Direct hit to the port side. We're losing power. Hull breach on deck 3. Ryan checked his screens. 5 pirate ships had them surrounded. There was nowhere left to run. The Valiant was dying, but the civilian ships were almost clear. Just a few more minutes, he made his decision. "Everyone to the escape pods." "That's an order." Ben stared at him. "Sir, what about you?" "I'm staying. Someone needs to pilot this ship into that pirate flagship over there." "Now go." Kate grabbed his arm. "Ryan, no. We can find another way." "There is no other way. Go, get to safety." "That's a direct order from your captain." His crew did not want to leave him, but they obeyed. One by one, they ran to the escape pods. Ben was the last to go. He saluted Ryan, tears in his eyes. Then he was gone. Ryan was alone on the bridge. The Valiant was falling apart around him, but the engines still worked. He pointed the ship at the huge pirate flagship and pushed the engines to maximum. The ship picked up speed. Faster and faster. The pirates realized what he was doing. They fired everything they had at the Valiant. The ship's shields failed. The hull started to burn. But Ryan kept going. Nothing would stop him now. At the last second before impact, Ryan thought about his crew. He hoped they made it to safety. He hoped the civilians escaped. He hoped his death meant something. The Valiant hit the pirate flagship at full speed. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from the other side of the solar system. Both ships were destroyed instantly. The remaining pirate ships, shocked by the loss of their leader, retreated into hyperspace. 3 hours later, the Coalition fleet arrived. They found the escape pods floating in space. They found the wreckage of the battle. And buried deep in the twisted metal of the destroyed ships, they found Ryan Cole. Somehow still alive. Barely breathing, but alive. The medics said it was a miracle. Ryan's crew said it was because he was too stubborn to die. Either way, he had saved 10,000 lives. And the galaxy would never forget what he did. Ryan woke up in a hospital bed. Everything hurt. His head felt like someone had hit it with a hammer. His chest was wrapped in bandages. When he tried to move, his body refused to cooperate. "Don't try to move," a voice said. Ryan turned his head slowly and saw Ben Torres sitting in a chair beside the bed. His first officer looked tired but relieved. "How long?" Ryan's voice came out as a whisper. 3 days. The doctor said you're lucky to be alive. You had a broken arm, 4 broken ribs, a concussion, and severe burns. But you're going to be okay." Ryan tried to smile. "The crew? Everyone made it. All 20 of us. Thanks to you, Captain." Relief flooded through Ryan. His crew was safe. That was all that mattered. He closed his eyes for a moment. "There's more," Ben said. "You're a hero, Captain. The whole galaxy knows what you did. You saved 10,000 people, including 3 members of the Varesh royal family. The news channels can't stop talking about it. They're calling you the bravest soldier in the Coalition." Ryan felt uncomfortable. He did not care about being famous. He had just done what needed to be done. "I was just doing my job," Ben laughed. "Try telling that to the Varesh. Their queen wants to give you a reward. A big one. The ceremony is in 2 weeks." 2 weeks later, Ryan stood on the planet Varesh Prime. He wore his dress uniform, which felt too tight around the collar. The ceremony was being held in the Royal Palace, a massive building made of crystal that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Thousands of people filled the Great Hall. Most of them were Varesh, the alien race that owned this world. They were tall and graceful, with skin that changed colors like a rainbow. They moved like dancers, every gesture smooth and perfect. Ryan felt clumsy just standing near them. The Varesh valued beauty above everything else. Their whole society was built around it. The most beautiful people got the best jobs, the most respect, the most power. It was strange to Ryan, but he tried not to judge. Every culture had its own ways. Queen Solara sat on a throne at the front of the hall. She was old but still beautiful, her skin shimmering with silver and gold. She looked at Ryan with an expression he could not read. Was it respect? Curiosity? He was not sure. "Captain Ryan Cole," the Queen said. Her voice filled the hall without her needing to shout. "You have saved the lives of my people. You risked everything to protect strangers. For this, we honor you. We offer you any reward you wish within reason." Ryan did not know what to say. He did not want a reward. But refusing would be rude. He opened his mouth to ask for something simple, maybe a medal or a certificate. But the queen continued. Among those you saved were members of my own family. 3 of my daughters were on Kepler Station that day. Because of this, I offer you the greatest honor I can give. You may choose one of my daughters to be your bride. This will unite our peoples and show our gratitude. The hall went completely silent. Ryan felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Marriage? He had not expected this. He looked around, hoping someone would tell him this was a joke. But everyone was serious. 3 women stepped forward. These were the princesses. Ryan stared at them, trying to understand what was happening. The first princess was the most beautiful person Ryan had ever seen. Her name was Alara. Her skin glowed with gold and silver light. Her features were perfect. She moved like water, smooth and effortless. She looked at Ryan with confidence, clearly expecting him to choose her. Why would he not? She was perfect. The second princess was named Vera. She was beautiful too, though not as perfect as Ilara. Her skin was blue and green. She stood like a soldier, strong and alert. She studied Ryan with sharp eyes, as if trying to figure out what kind of man he was. The third princess stood a little apart from her sisters. Her name was Naira, and she was different. Where her sisters glowed with color, Naira's skin was a dull gray-green. It had patches and marks on it, irregular and rough. One of her eyes was cloudy, almost white. Her features were not symmetrical. By Varesh standards, she was ugly. Ryan could hear people in the crowd whispering. Some laughed quietly. They were making fun of Naira. She kept her head down, not looking at anyone. She clearly did not expect to be chosen. She was just there because tradition said all 3 daughters had to be present. Ryan felt anger rise in his chest. How could they treat her like this? How could her own people mock her in public? He looked at Naira more closely. She was thin and small compared to her sisters. Her hands had ink stains on them. She wore a simple necklace that looked handmade, not the fancy jewelry her sisters wore. And when a servant nearby stumbled and dropped something, Naira was the only one who moved to help. She caught herself and stopped, but Ryan had seen it. He looked at all 3 princesses again. Ilara stood with pride and vanity. She clearly thought she was better than everyone else. Vera was calculating, already thinking about what she could gain from this marriage. But Naira just looked sad and resigned. Ryan thought about his life. He had spent years in the military, surrounded by people who cared only about rank and power. He had seen beautiful people who were cruel. He had known ugly people who were kind. He had learned that what mattered was not what someone looked like. It was who they were inside. He took a step forward. The whole galaxy was watching. This moment was being broadcast on every news channel in Coalition space. Whatever he chose now would be remembered forever. Ryan spoke clearly and firmly. I choose Princess Naira. For a moment, nothing happened. Then chaos broke out. People in the crowd gasped and shouted. Ilara's face turned red with anger and shame. How dare this human reject her? She was perfect. Vera looked shocked, unable to believe what she had just heard. Queen Silara's calm expression cracked for just a second before she recovered. But the biggest reaction came from Naira herself. She looked up at Ryan with her one good eye, and he saw complete disbelief. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like she wanted to run away, to hide. This could not be real. Why would anyone choose her? Ryan walked over to her. He stopped a few feet away and smiled gently. Hello, Princess Naira. My name is Ryan Cole. I hope we can get to know each other. Naira stared at him. Why? She whispered. Why did you choose me? Ryan spoke quietly so only she could hear. Because when I looked at your sisters, I saw pride and ambition. But when I looked at you, I saw kindness. I saw someone who cares about others. That matters more to me than beauty. Tears formed in Naira's eyes. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. She did not know if she could trust it. But she wanted to. Queen Silera stood from her throne. She looked confused and maybe a little angry, but she was bound by tradition. She had made an offer in front of the whole galaxy. She could not take it back. Very well, the Queen said stiffly. Captain Cole has made his choice. By the laws of our people, Princess Naira will be his bride. You have 1 month to prepare for the wedding ceremony. The crowd was still buzzing with shock and gossip. Alara stormed out of the hall, her face twisted with rage. Farah followed more slowly, deep in thought. But Ryan did not care about them. He was looking at Naira, who was looking back at him with wonder and fear. Across the galaxy, people watched the ceremony and tried to make sense of what had happened. Human news channels debated Ryan's choice. Some said he was noble. Others said he was crazy. Alien races whispered that humans must have very strange ideas about beauty. But Ryan did not care what anyone thought. He had made his choice, and looking at Naira's surprised, hopeful face, he knew it was the right one. The first week was awkward. Ryan and Naira were given a private wing in the royal palace. It had beautiful rooms with tall windows that looked out over the crystal gardens. But the beauty did not make things less strange. Naira barely spoke to him. She moved through the rooms like a ghost, quiet and careful. She seemed to expect Ryan to change his mind at any moment. Or worse, she thought he was playing some cruel joke on her. Ryan tried to give her space. He understood that this was hard for her. She had spent her whole life being rejected. Why would she trust him? He needed to be patient. On the third day, Ryan decided to try something different. He found Naira in the library, surrounded by books and data pads. She looked up when he entered, her body tensing as if ready to run. "I'm sorry to bother you," Ryan said. "I was wondering if you could help me with something. I don't understand Varesh history very well. Could you teach me?" Naira looked surprised. "You want me to teach you? If you don't mind. I figure if I'm going to be part of your family, I should learn about your culture." For the first time, Naira smiled a little. It was a small, uncertain smile, but it was real. "I suppose I could do that." She started explaining Varesh history, and Ryan listened carefully. He asked questions, real questions, not just to be polite. He wanted to understand. And as Naira talked, she began to relax. Her voice grew stronger. Her eyes lit up with excitement when she explained something interesting. Ryan discovered that Naira was incredibly smart. She knew 17 languages. She had written research papers about alien biology that were respected across the galaxy, though she had published them under a fake name. She had never told her family about this work. They would not have cared. Over the next few days, they talked more. Ryan told Naira about his life as a soldier. He talked about battles he had fought, but also about his doubts and fears. He admitted that he often felt like an outsider in the coalition. Humans were the newest members, and many alien races looked down on them. "I know what that feels like," Naira said quietly. "Being an outsider, not fitting in with your own people." "Tell me about it," Ryan said. "Tell me your story." Naira hesitated. Then slowly, she began to talk. She told Ryan about growing up in the palace, always hidden away because she was an embarrassment to her family. She explained the genetic mutation that had made her different, how it prevented her skin from glowing like other Varesh. "My people believe that beauty reflects inner worth," Naira said. "If you're ugly, it means you're defective. Worthless. That's what they taught me. That's what I believed for a long time." Ryan felt anger on her behalf. "That's wrong. You're not worthless. You're brilliant and kind and interesting. Anyone who can't see that is blind." Naira looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Do you really mean that?" "Yes, I really do." After that conversation, things changed between them. Naira started to trust Ryan. She showed him more of herself. She took him to her favorite places in the palace, the quiet corners where she used to hide as a child. She showed him her research, her music, her art. One evening, Naira brought out a strange instrument. It looked a bit like a harp, but with strings that glowed faintly in the dark. "This is a Velsara," she explained. "It's a traditional Varesh instrument. I taught myself to play when I was young." "Will you play for me?" Ryan asked. Naira looked nervous. "I'm not very good. I'd still like to hear it." Naira sat down and began to play. The music that came from the Velsara was beautiful and sad. It spoke of loneliness and longing, of hoping for something better. Ryan sat perfectly still, listening. When the music ended, he had tears in his eyes. "That was amazing," he said softly. "You're incredibly talented." "Really?" Naira whispered. "Really. Thank you for sharing that with me." They discovered other things they had in common too. Both loved old Earth jazz music. Naira had found recordings in the palace archives and fallen in love with the sound. Both had a dry sense of humor that made them laugh at the same jokes. Both preferred quiet evenings with books to loud parties. As the days passed, Ryan realized something. He was not just being kind to Naira anymore. He genuinely enjoyed her company. She was interesting and funny and thoughtful. Talking to her was easy. Being with her felt right. Naira seemed to be feeling something similar. She smiled more now. She looked at Ryan with warmth instead of suspicion. When they sat together in the evenings, she moved closer to him, not further away. 2 weeks before the wedding, Ryan took Naira on a trip. They borrowed a small diplomatic ship and flew to a nearby moon. There was a famous sight there, twin suns that set at the same time, painting the sky in orange and purple. They stood on the observation deck, watching the suns sink toward the horizon. The light made everything glow. Ryan looked at Naira and saw that she was crying. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. "Nothing's wrong," Naira said. "I'm just happy. I never thought I could be this happy. I spent my whole life believing no one would ever want me, and now you're here. You chose me. You see me. I don't understand why, but I'm grateful." Ryan reached out and took her hand. She did not pull away. "You don't have to understand. Just believe it. You're special, Naira. You always were. Your family just couldn't see it." They stood together in silence, holding hands, watching the twin suns set. The colors in the sky shifted and changed. Orange became red, then purple, then deep blue. "Ryan," Naira said quietly. "Yes?" "I think I'm falling in love with you." Ryan turned to look at her. Her face was lit by the dying sunlight. Her gray-green skin seemed almost beautiful in that moment. But more than that, her expression was open and honest, and full of hope. "I'm falling in love with you too," Ryan said. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Naira did not pull away. She leaned in to meet him. Their lips touched in a gentle kiss. It was Naira's first kiss. For a moment she was scared, but then she relaxed into it. It felt right. It felt safe. For the first time in her life, she felt truly loved. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. The suns had set completely now. Stars filled the sky above them. The universe seemed full of possibilities. "Are you ready for the wedding?" Ryan asked. Naira nodded. "I am now, as long as you're there with me." "I'll always be there with you," Ryan promised. "That's what marriage means, right? Being there for each other." They flew back to Varesh Prime that night. But everything felt different now. They were not strangers forced together by tradition anymore. They were two people who had chosen each other, two people who understood what it meant to be outsiders, two people who saw past surfaces to what really mattered. The wedding was only 2 weeks away, but Naira was not afraid anymore. She had found something she never expected to find, someone who loved her not despite who she was, but because of it. And Ryan had found something too. He had found a true partner, someone who understood him, someone who made him want to be better. In trying to do the right thing, he had discovered something precious. Love, it turned out, had nothing to do with beauty. It had everything to do with seeing someone's soul and choosing to walk beside them. And that was exactly what they had found. The wedding day arrived. The ceremony was smaller than it would have been if Ryan had chosen Alara or Vera, but it was still broadcast across Coalition space. Millions of people watched from their homes, curious to see what would happen. The ceremony took place in the palace garden under the open sky. Ryan wore his military dress uniform. He had polished his boots until they shined. His hair was combed neatly. He looked good, but he felt nervous. This was real now. He was getting married. Then Naira appeared, and Ryan forgot to breathe. She wore traditional Varesh wedding robes made of soft white fabric that flowed around her like water. Her hair was decorated with small flowers. She looked nervous too, but when she saw Ryan, she smiled. They walked to the center of the garden together. Queen Salara performed the ceremony, speaking words in both Varesh and English. Ryan and Naira repeated their vows, promising to love and support each other. As they spoke, something strange began to happen. Naira's skin, which had always been dull gray-green, started to shimmer faintly. At first, Ryan thought it was just the sunlight playing tricks, but the glow grew stronger. People in the crowd gasped. Naira looked down at her hands and saw light pulsing beneath her skin. Colors swirled across her arms, her face, her entire body. She looked up at Ryan with wide eyes, not understanding what was happening. The ceremony continued, but everyone was distracted now. They could not stop staring at Naira. The light coming from her skin grew brighter and more beautiful. It was not like the glow of other Varesh. It was something more, something incredible. When the ceremony ended and they were officially married, Queen Celera looked shocked. She stared at Naira as if seeing her for the first time. The other guests whispered frantically to each other. Something impossible was happening. Ryan and Naira were quickly escorted to their new private quarters. Palace guards kept everyone else away. Ryan held Naira's hand as they walked. He could feel her trembling. Once they were alone, the full transformation happened. Light exploded from Naira's body so bright that Ryan had to shield his eyes. When he could see again, he gasped. Naira was transformed. Her skin glowed with brilliant pulsing colors that shifted and changed like a living rainbow. The dull patches were gone. Instead, complex patterns flowed across her skin in waves of light. Her clouded eye had cleared completely. Now both eyes shone with color that seemed to contain the entire spectrum. She stood taller now, more confident. She looked at Ryan with wonder and confusion. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. Before Ryan could answer, Naira's mind was flooded with knowledge. Memories that were not her own. Ancient memories from her ancestors. She understood now what she had become. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at Ryan. "I need to tell you something. I need to explain what this means." They sat together while Naira explained. Her voice was stronger now, filled with emotion. "I'm not deformed." "I never was. This is called the true bloom. It's an ancient trait from when my species was young." She told Ryan how the Varesh had once been a prey species on their homeworld. They had developed the true bloom as a survival mechanism. When a Varesh experienced genuine, unconditional love and acceptance, the bloom would activate. It gave them enhanced abilities, greater intelligence, empathic powers, the ability to heal others, and a form of communication that allowed them to share thoughts and feelings directly. "But over time, my people changed," Naira continued. "We became obsessed with superficial beauty. We stopped valuing emotional connection. We forgot what real love meant. The true bloom stopped appearing. It became just a myth, a legend. Until now." She took Ryan's hands in hers. "You did this. You saw me when no one else would. You loved me not for what I looked like, but for who I am. That's what unlocked it. That's what my species forgot. Real beauty isn't something you're born with. It's something you become when someone loves you for your true self." Ryan was speechless. He looked at Naira, at her glowing skin and bright eyes. She was beautiful now by any standard, but that was not what moved him. What moved him was the joy and wonder in her expression. She finally understood her own worth. "I love you," Ryan said simply. "Before this transformation and after, you were always beautiful to me." Naira kissed him, and for the first time in her life she felt complete. Outside their quarters, chaos had erupted in the palace. Word of Naira's transformation spread instantly. Queen Celera summoned the royal council and the oldest scholars. They searched through ancient texts, looking for information about the true bloom. What they found shook their entire society. The scholars confirmed that the true bloom was real. It had once been common among ancient Varesh, but it required something their modern society had lost: the ability to love without judgment, to accept others completely. The political implications were enormous. For centuries, Varesh society had been built on the belief that physical beauty reflected inner worth. They had created a strict hierarchy based on appearance. Those considered beautiful had power and respect. Those considered ugly were cast aside. But Naira's transformation proved them wrong. She had been considered the ugliest, the most defective. Yet she had achieved something none of the beautiful Varesh had managed. She had unlocked their species' greatest potential. The news spread across the galaxy. Scientists and philosophers debated what it meant. Religious leaders called it a miracle. Political analysts discussed how it would change the balance of power in the coalition. Alara was devastated. She had spent her entire life believing she was perfect, superior to everyone else. Her beauty had been everything to her. Now she learned that she was emotionally hollow. She lacked the depth to achieve what her ugly sister had done. She came to Naira's quarters late one night. Ryan answered the door and found Ilara standing there with red eyes. She looked smaller somehow, less confident. "I need to speak to my sister," Ilara said quietly. Naira came to the door. The two sisters looked at each other. One glowing with incredible light, the other beautiful but dim by comparison. "I came to apologize," Ilara said. "I was cruel to you our whole lives. I thought I was better than you. I was wrong. You were always more than me. I just couldn't see it." Naira could have been cruel back. She could have enjoyed this moment of triumph. But she did not. That was not who she was. "I forgive you," Naira said. "It wasn't your fault. Our society taught you to think that way. But you can change. It's not too late." Ilara nodded, tears falling. She left without another word. But something had shifted in her. A crack had appeared in her perfect facade. Maybe in time something real could grow there. Queen Celera called a press conference the next day. She stood before cameras from every major news network in Coalition space. Behind her stood Naira and Ryan holding hands. "Today marks a turning point for the Varesh people," the Queen said. "We have learned that our society has been built on a lie. We valued appearance over substance. We judged worth by beauty. We were wrong." She announced sweeping reforms. Beauty standards would be dismantled. Education would focus more on emotional intelligence and empathy. Marriages would no longer be arranged based on appearance. The Varesh would have to learn to see beyond the surface. "My daughter Naira has shown us the way," Queen Celera continued. "And Captain Ryan Cole, a human, saw what we were blind to. Perhaps we have much to learn from humanity after all." This statement sent shockwaves through the Coalition. Humanity had always been seen as crude and unsophisticated. They were the newest members of the Coalition, barely tolerated by most species. But now, one human had accomplished what no one else could. Ryan's choice, which had seemed foolish or incomprehensible to so many, was revealed as profoundly wise. He had seen value where others saw only ugliness. He had chosen character over appearance. And in doing so, he had changed everything. That night, Ryan and Naira stood on their balcony, looking up at the stars. Naira's skin still glowed softly in the darkness. She leaned against Ryan and he wrapped his arms around her. "Everything is going to change now," Naira said. "For my people. For the Coalition. For us. Are you scared?" Ryan asked. "A little, but mostly I'm hopeful. For the first time I can imagine a better future. One where people see each other for who they really are." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "We'll face it together, whatever comes next." And as they stood there under the stars, the universe seemed to hold its breath. A change had begun, started by one simple choice, and no one knew yet how far it would spread. The months after the wedding were difficult for Varesh society. Changing centuries of tradition was not easy. Many Varesh resisted the new ideas. They had built their entire lives around beauty standards. They did not want to give up the power those standards gave them, but change was inevitable. More cases of the true bloom began to appear across Varesh worlds. A young Varesh man who had been rejected by his family for his appearance found love with a human woman. When he experienced true acceptance for the first time, his skin erupted in the same brilliant light that Naira had shown. A Varesh woman who had devoted her life to helping refugees, ignoring the mockery of her peers, manifested the true bloom when she finally allowed herself to be vulnerable with someone she trusted. Each new case strengthened the movement for change. The transformation became a symbol. It proved that true worth came from who you were, not what you looked like. It showed that emotional depth and genuine connection were more valuable than perfect features. Ryan was promoted to admiral and given command of a joint human-Varesh fleet. It was an honor, but Ryan remained humble. When reporters asked him about his role in changing Varesh society, he always gave the same answer. "I didn't do anything special. I just saw what was there all along." Maybe sometimes the obvious choice isn't the right one. Maybe sometimes you need to look deeper. Humanity's position in the Coalition changed dramatically. Other species began to study human philosophy and culture. They wanted to understand how humans had retained the wisdom that they had lost. How had humans stayed focused on what mattered? The answer, it seemed, was that humans had never stopped valuing character over appearance. In human society, there were many different standards of beauty. What looked good in one culture might not in another. This diversity forced humans to look past the surface. They had to judge people by their actions and words, not just their faces. This realization spread to other species too. The krill, who had valued physical strength above all else, began to recognize other forms of power. The ability to think, to feel, to connect with others. These were strengths too. The meridians, who prized logic and suppressed emotion, started to explore the value of feelings. They learned that emotions were not weaknesses. They were a different kind of intelligence. Slowly, the entire coalition began to change. It was not easy. There were setbacks and resistance. But the momentum was unstoppable. Ryan and Naira settled into their new life together. They divided their time between Earth and Varesh Prime, serving as bridges between their two cultures. Everywhere they went, people wanted to meet them. They had become symbols of hope and change, but they tried to live as normally as possible. They had a small home on Earth, a simple house by the ocean. When they were there, they were just Ryan and Naira, not heroes or symbols. Just two people in love. Naira used her enhanced abilities to advance xenobiological research. She could understand the biology of different species in ways that had been impossible before. She made breakthroughs that saved lives and improved medicine across the galaxy. But her favorite work was teaching. She started a school for young Varesh who did not fit traditional beauty standards. She taught them that they had value, that they were not defective or broken, that their differences made them special. 3 years after the wedding, Naira gave birth to a daughter. They named her Lisa. She was born with her mother's potential for the true bloom and her father's sharp mind. She was small and curious with eyes that saw everything. Lisa represented the future. She was a bridge between species, living proof that the barriers between different peoples were not as strong as they seemed. She grew up speaking both English and Varesh. She learned both human and alien customs. She belonged to both worlds. As Lisa grew older, she asked questions. "Mom, why do some people still judge others by how they look?" Naira answered carefully. "Because change is hard. People are used to their old ways. But slowly they're learning. You'll help them learn too." One of the most surprising changes involved Ilara. After her conversation with Naira, something had broken inside her, or maybe something had finally opened. She realized that her entire life had been empty. She had been beautiful but shallow, admired but not loved. Ilara came to Naira and asked for help. "Teach me," she said quietly, swallowing her pride. "Teach me how to be something more than beautiful." "Teach me how to be real," Naira agreed. She took Ilara under her wing. It was a long, difficult process. Ilara had to unlearn everything she had been taught. She had to learn to value herself for who she was, not what she looked like. It took years, but slowly Ilara changed. She started working with refugees, using her influence to help those in need. She learned empathy and compassion. She never achieved the true bloom herself, but she found something better: genuine purpose and self-worth. Eventually, Ilara met a human diplomat named Carl Mitchell. He was not particularly handsome. He was ordinary-looking, with brown hair and a friendly smile. But he was kind and intelligent. He treated Ilara like a person, not a trophy. Their relationship grew slowly, built on mutual respect rather than appearance. When Carl proposed, Ilara said yes without hesitation. She had finally found what she had been missing all along: real love. 10 years passed. Ryan and Naira's story had become legend, taught to children across Coalition space. Books were written about them. Movies were made. They had changed the galaxy, but to them, the most important thing was the life they had built together. They had their daughter. They had their work. They had each other. That was enough. One evening, they stood on the observation deck of a Coalition ship, watching stars streak past. Lisa was off commanding her own ship now, following in her father's footsteps. The Coalition had changed so much since that day at Kepler Station. It was more inclusive now, more accepting of differences. There were still problems, of course. Change was never perfect or complete, but things were better, and they would keep getting better. Naira's bioluminescence still glowed as bright as ever. Her skin shifted through patterns of blue and gold and silver. She leaned against Ryan and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd chosen differently?" Naira asked. "If you'd picked Ilara or Vera?" Ryan shook his head. "Not even once. Choosing you was the easiest decision I ever made, and the best." He was older now, his hair gray at the temples. The scar on his cheek had faded but not disappeared, but his eyes were still sharp and kind. "I love you," Nara said simply. "I love you too," Ryan replied. They stood together in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other against all odds, two people who had changed a galaxy by simply seeing past the surface to what truly mattered. A historian had interviewed Ryan the previous week for a documentary. "Everyone thought you were crazy," the historian had said. "They thought you picked wrong." "What do you say to that?" Ryan had smiled. "I didn't pick the ugliest princess. I picked the one with the most beautiful soul. Turns out that's what really matters. That's what it's always been about." The stars continued their eternal dance outside the ship's windows. Somewhere in the vastness of space, other beings were learning the same lesson. They were looking beyond appearances. They were discovering their own version of the true bloom. And in a small way, every time someone chose character over appearance, every time someone saw past the surface to the person underneath, Ryan and Naira's legacy lived on. Love was not about beauty. It was not about perfection. It was about seeing someone completely, accepting them fully, and choosing to walk beside them. That was the lesson the galaxy had learned. Ryan looked down at Naira, at her glowing skin and bright eyes. But what he really saw was the woman he had fallen in love with, the scholar who loved ancient music, the teacher who helped lost children, the partner who understood him better than anyone. "Ready to go home?" he asked. Naira nodded. "Let's go home." They left the observation deck hand in hand, walking toward their future together. Behind them the stars shone eternal. Ahead of them their daughter was making her own path. Around them a galaxy continued to change and grow. And somewhere in every corner of Coalition space someone else was making a choice. To see beyond the surface, to value what truly mattered, to find their own true bloom. The story of Ryan and Naira would be told for generations, not because a soldier became a hero, not because a princess was transformed, but because two people proved that love could change everything. All it took was one person willing to look past what everyone else saw. One person brave enough to choose differently. One moment when someone saw not with their eyes but with their heart. And in that moment everything changed.